1959 was a pivotal year for jazz, with many classics being released in that year. One album that wasn't released in 1959 but was recorded in 1959 and then subsequently released in February 1960 was John Coltrane's wonderful record, Giant Steps. The first time I heard that record I was hooked, but there was one song on that record that just gave me this tranquil feeling, and it's still my favourite track on that album today, and that song is Naima. So let's take a dive into this beautiful piece of music. The title for Naima was named after John Coltrane's wife at the time, Juanita Naima Grubbs. It was written as a love letter to her. It is said that it was Coltrane's favourite composition of his. Recording the track wasn't as simple as just one session and the track was done. Coltrane recorded different versions of it many times with many different players. Sessions were recorded at Atlantic Studios. Giant Steps was Coltrane's first record on Atlantic Records. He recorded it at Atlantic Studios. In the year in which Giant Steps was recorded, 1959, Atlantic Records and Atlantic Studios moved to 1841 Broadway. Recording engineer and producer Tom Dowd was a big part of the success of Atlantic Studios. He has been credited with innovating multi-track recording. Tom Dowd also worked on the Manhattan Project. In the early days of Atlantic Records, producer Tom Dowd would do recording at the offices. At night, the desks would be pushed against the walls and singing groups would gather around one or two microphones in the inner office, and he would be in the outer office recording singing groups with a small mixer and a tape recorder. The first session for Naima took place on March 26, 1959 at Atlantic Studios in New York City. It featured Cedar Walton on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, Lex Humphreys on drums and John Coltrane on sax. The quartet recorded 6 takes, but none of them made the final cut. The next session for Naima took place on May 4th and 5th. Due to Coltrane's original band members' prior touring commitments, John put together a new lineup which consisted of Tommy Flanagan on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, Art Taylor on drums, and of course John on tenor sax. A lot of this session day comprised the majority of what would go on to be the Giant Steps album, but the one take of Naima was disregarded and no longer exists. On December 2nd, 1959, the group that played on the final master of Naima was Walton Kelly on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, Jimmy Cobb on drums, and John on tenor sax. These 3 players played with Coltrane on the Miles Davis record A Kind of Blue. Bill Evans played piano on A Kind of Blue apart from the song Freddie Freeloader, which was played by Wynton Kelly. Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb played on all the tracks on A Kind of Blue. Coltrane would record Naima again in 1964 for the film called Les Chats dans le Sac. The players on that session, including Coltrane, was Jimmy Garrison on double bass, Elvin Jones on drums, and McCoy Tyner on piano. It was recorded by Rudy Van Gelder at his studios, Van Gelder Studio, Inglewood Cliffs, New Jersey, USA. Director Gilles Groux was friends with Jimmy Garrison, and he used that relationship to request songs for Coltrane's quartet to record. The director travelled to the United States to attend the recording sessions for Coltrane's only soundtrack work, and Coltrane recorded it without informing his record label. After 3 hours in the studio, Gilles took the master tapes with him to Canada. The recordings were stored away until the 21st century, when an archivist from the National Film Board of Canada was tasked with assembling Gilles' work. The government agency negotiated with Impulse Records to have the album released. It was released on the 27th of September 2019. 2 takes of Naima appear on the record. With regards to Giant Steps and the recording of Naima, it's hard to source what microphones were used, but I would imagine there are many different microphones such as Neumann, RCA, Telefunken. In the extended liner notes for Giant Steps, it mentions some microphones that were used. It states, "This is a high fidelity recording. Atlantic uses Electro Voice 667, CAPS and Telefunken U47 microphones, and Ampex Model 300 8-or tape recorder for its recording sessions." The Giant Steps album was recorded to 3-track tape. The engineer was Tom Dowd, and it was produced by Nisuhi Ertigun. Sorry if I said that wrong. In Naima, Coltrane uses pedal points or pedal tones as a compositional device. A pedal point is a sustained or repeated note, usually in the bass, that stays consistent while the chords above it change. Coltrane doesn't use pedal points once, he structures the entire harmony of Naima around them. There's two main pedal points or pedal tones in Naima, which are E flat in the A sections and A flat in the B section. Using pedal tones is a cool compositional device because it kind of grounds the track, and as you can hear if you listen, the pedal point is only playing E flat. So in the bass clef I'm playing E flat with my left hand. The playing on the track perfectly suits the vibe of the music. There's nothing over elaborate. Like Coltrane isn't doing like crazy runs. All the other players are playing to exactly what the song should be. Jimmy Cobb is playing really softly, you can barely hear him. Paul Chambers is playing pedal points. John is playing the melody, and Wynton is providing that foundation for the melody. And that's what great players do. Great players serve the composition. There's many players who want to show how flash they are and how fast they can play and this and that. And that's not really the sign of a great player. A great player knows when to play those things. It knows when to, we'll say, be flashy or when to do this. But being flashy for the sake of being flashy is just stupid. You know what I mean? Like it serves nothing. And those four guys who played on Naima, they served the composition, which is what great players do. Normally when I do these videos, at the end of the video I do a recreation of a bit of the song, but in this case I didn't, because the tenor sax is such an integral part of the song, and doing it on a VST, which I did do a recreation of it, it just doesn't have the vibe, you know what I mean? It just doesn't have the vibe, and tenor sax is such an integral part of the song, like I said, and I have a trumpet and I can play a trumpet, not that I'm very good, but I wasn't going to substitute a trumpet for a tenor sax. But you have a little bit of me playing piano at the end. So, yeah. Thanks again for listening. Cheers. Goodbye.